Just like a star across the sky.
Okay,
Just like an
let's see
angel off
here.
the page. You
You know,
have a
like my
bit into
signatures of it
my life.
out here.
Feel like I'll never
I
be
really,
the same.
I love the
Just
sun,
like a
like what it's
song
doing, like in
in
the
my
background,
heart.
right? It's like
Just like
a
all my
Hi guys, I hope you're well. I hope that this summer is treating you well. I'm really good, especially with this weather. I'm very weather sensitive. I don't know if you guys feel like that. So as soon as like we get to spring, summer, like I feel like renewed and I feel happy and I feel energized and hopeful. So the sun is doing me wonders. I don't think we've had like a life update in a long time. I feel like I say stuff here and there, but just a little documentation of where I am in life and what's been happening and also what I'm looking forward to. So May was like a very big transitional month for me. Like there was a lot of new things happening. I started a new project. Project is like what I call new jobs or a new adventure. And it's something that you guys know, like for a while I was looking for something very particular because of the next phase of my life. And I was having to, of course, hold on. And some months were really hard after a while, but I was like determined. I was like I told you guys, with every new job or project I start, I always tell myself, okay, this and this has to be better. This is where I see myself, or this is the pay I want, or these are the conditions I want to work in, or this is the way I want to feel about my work. And so I was spending a lot of time since I left Barcelona on that particular realignment or new manifestation that I really wanted for my life. I had like 4 main goals. I wanted it to be remote. It had to be remote. And it would be something that was a bit closer to the things I've studied or the things I'm passionate about, like more in that direction. Just like what I did in Barcelona was also closer than what I did in Lisbon. And this one is even more closer in that way. I want it to be part-time. It's not part-time, it's like a full-time job. But then I recognized actually it was the only negotiable because the other 3 were very important to me. So 3 out of 4, we're really happy. And it allows me to start taking steps for my next project or the next thing in my life, for the next goals in my life. And that I'm so grateful to have finally landed and been able to accomplish. And of course now it's only the beginning. Like I'm getting used to my role, I'm getting used to the company I'm working for, and also how I can best contribute. The good thing is it's within the areas that I am passionate about, so within diversity and equity and inclusion, but I'm taking more like a content communication marketing role, which is interesting and fun, because it's also, again, like I love getting skills and getting paid to do things that not only I'm passionate about, but also skills that you put effort in becoming great at, because you can always use them in so many ways. Even for my own self, I like evergreen skills, right? Or I've been like trying to accumulate professionally evergreen skills that I can use for other things or use anywhere in the world. So that's what's been happening on that front, which is so nice, because I remember in this exact space when I was making a video about the in-betweens of dreams, or like the next thing you want to manifest, and keeping that space like good and receptive, and keeping the faith, and also holding up for the things that are very important for you. I did, like before this, get offers on other projects or other jobs, and things that would have been perfect for me before, but now I was like, no, if you do that, you're going backwards. You need to go forward, you know, and you need to keep adding to your ideas and ambitions going forward, right? In my holistic sessions, I always say that don't see everything as something that has to be fully here right now. Like always go from a place of, that's what I try to do, like what's the next best step forward in the direction I want to go, and to be really good at not going backwards when you can avoid it. I know that sometimes it can be hard because life happens and sometimes we make compromises here and there. Even me deciding that it's okay, it's full time, because everything else was so perfect, I was like, okay, actually that's actually quite perfect right now, because I need to replenish my savings. I need to, and that is easier done when you have a full-time job. But the thing that is harder now is that I don't have as much time for my other projects. I don't have as much time for sessions. I don't have as much time for creating content here and working. I was working on my book, and so I'm like in that transitional space where you're like trying to figure out, how do I keep doing what I need to do so that my economical well-being is thriving, so that I can then have more leverage when it comes to my time and buying back my time. For me, what's also important is that I enjoy my path there. So working for a company that I think is working on something cool and something that I can stand by and something that I can be happy to work for definitely helps. And also, so far, the people I'm working with are also very nice, but also I like that it's remote, so you don't have all the maybe overforced sometimes interactions with people or office chatter. You can just focus on your work wherever you need to be, and as long as you do what you got to do, it's very flexible. It's a very humane way of working, or the best way I can be in these kinds of systems. And I hope that you're doing your best to find your path as well. Some of you have followed me for a long time, and I hope it's also inspiring for you, especially the younger generation, that you can just build that step by step. That's how I've done it. I didn't know 3-4 years ago what I really wanted. Clearly, it was almost like, what's the next aligned step for me? What feels better? What could feel more grounding? What could feel more like me? And then I just make choices based on that at every step. And I trust that with that approach, I will get to where I need to go. But not only that, I will love my journey as I get there, which is also very key for me, because we're not here living for destinations. We are living for the view on the journey, the interactions, the learnings, the growings. Like, that's for me is also like very importante. So there is that. That is an area of my dream vision board that now it's like, okay, done. We have something we can do everywhere that we feel more aligned with and that we are well compensated for. Great. And also, my work in a way is based in Copenhagen, because I came back to Denmark, which was also key for me. Like, I wanted to, because I've been living in the South for a while, and though I love and cherish the experiences I have there and forever recommend, I was also at a space in my life where I was like, okay, now I'm ready to make Danish money, you know? That was also an important part for me coming back here and trying to apply my skills and my degrees here, but also knowing that because of my experiences abroad, it also made it easier for me now to have something to leverage at the jobs that I was seeking. And also my side projects were a big part of that. The side projects I've worked on, creating content, and yeah, even my social enterprise with the exhibitions I told you about, not the norm, like creating culture and dialogue and community, all of those like kind of worked in my favor. So it's interesting because, again, it's an affirmation that you should always trust your journey and trust your passions and trust the things that call you home, and trust that those things will guide you to where you need to be next or what you need to do next. And you might not see the full picture while you're at it, but it's kind of like Slamdog Millionaire, that everything is going to lead up to the answers you will have when the questions present themselves, you know? So I'm really, really happy about that, and I feel really grateful for that. And it's been really wonderful to feel solid about my approaches in life and trust that things are working out as they're supposed to. Slow and steady, we're getting where we need to get. So in connection with that, some other things came up that I also wanted to share. I was thinking of making like a video maybe that was purely about that, but I kind of feel like this is more something that I can add in this because it's a life update or a life growth update. When I'm like in charge of my own time, in my own routines, and I'm just strictly working on my projects, it's so easy for me to feel good and grounded and well aligned within myself. But I think it's also because I'm the only one choosing my everyday life. I'm the only one choosing my routines. If I didn't sleep enough, I can sleep more when I wake up. There's so many things I do, like my walks and making time to spend a bit of time outdoors in nature. There's all these things I do, like how I eat. And also how I eat is also very important because you guys know I'm a foodie, and it's something that I'm happy to spend on good quality products and produce, but also even good quality supplements. Actually, the sun is sunning too much. I'm gonna go sit a bit. Okay, so much better. It's a bit better here. It's not as hot, so I'm feeling a bit less pressure to speak fast and get through it. The light is a bit blurry, but I also like it. I don't mind that. But yeah, so as I was saying, I think when I was working, I realized, so the place is like very big on diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And even the way they try to put the work flow, it's very respectful to that in some regard. But then I recognize, like, we talk about race, we talk about gender, we talk about all these things, but what I was recognizing for myself was that, like, I've made peace and I've worked through, like, my perspective as a womanist, my perspective as a Black person, as an African person, and my perspective even as somebody who's queer. But what was interesting was that while those things are never, like, they're not a big deal for me anymore, like, I've kind of gotten to a place that if somebody's sexist, racist, or homophobic, it's more like a them situation than me. In certain areas, it might affect me more than others, but overall, I've come to a place where I've done enough inner work and also tried to inform myself a lot on these structures, like psychologically, spiritually, that I don't feel as over affected by them anymore. Not that I never feel, but they're more like, okay, I know what I am, I know how the world is set up, and I know why some places those things that I am, and often things I didn't even choose, are seen as advantages, a disadvantage, or as permission for oppression. The thing that I've actually have felt like I really needed to come out with and feel nervous about has been being a highly sensitive person, or having sensory processing sensitivity, which is another way to say it. And even those two terms, and why sometimes I prefer sensory processing sensitivity, all go back to the fact that I still feel somewhat uncomfortable with telling people about that. Like, maybe not so much here, because this is my space, I make the guidelines, I make the expectations, this is my space, right? But more in everyday life, especially in work or even in maybe relationships, like, because I've noticed that the moments I mostly feel I need to say this and explain it is when I've met my own capacity of being like everybody else, you know, or pushing myself to exist in a way where I'm not called out. And it's been really interesting. Like, it's been through me starting this new role where I have recognized that of all the things that I fear being maybe discriminated or rejected by, the one that I'm currently very sensitive about is the way that my brain is wired, and the way that a lot of, like, people who have this or who are wired like this, it's like 20 to 30% of our population. And of course, within that, there is like a scale to how sensitive you are to those things. But there's enough of us that it matters that we shouldn't feel so odd. But this is also a trait that is seen in a lot of species, and it's supposed to be the canary birds of a species. Like, the more I understand those aspects, the more, like, I'm also able to understand myself and accept myself and have grace with myself, because I think learning that I have sensory limitations in some areas, but also having a mind that can sometimes be very ambitious in my own way. I'm not a grind ambitious person, I always say that, but like in the things I want to do, in the way I want to show up in the world, in the connections I want to be a part of, in the community I want to build. But then that ambition is always having to be limited, which is the word I'm feeling now. Whereas maybe I could see it as more that there is a certain capacity I have, and I have to be respectful of that capacity, or else I have to face the consequences, which sometimes it's when I've pushed my capacity that then I feel, oh, I need to tell people why I can't do that, or I need to tell people why I was acting strange at that thing, or I need to explain why this is not, even though it seems a very simple thing, why I'm struggling with it. And I haven't been liking that for myself, that's when I tell people, especially in new settings like work, like, hey, just so you know, I have sensory processing sensitivity, or also I'm in HSP, which I feel when you say I'm a highly sensitive person, people kind of like put it in the realm of, I can feel people's energies. And yes, while that is part of it to some degree in certain areas, what I mean to say is that sometimes it feels like, even for myself, that I'm relating to this thing that is not real, that is just woo-woo, if that makes sense. This is the least problematic thing about me or my inner settings, but it's the thing I'm struggling the most with, and more than my sexuality, something that I thought I would struggle more with, but accepting my sensitivity and accepting the limitations of my activities, and not to show up as a form of apology when I speak about it, in the sense of like, oh, unfortunately, or sadly I can't, or but more like, this is the kind of person I am, and we live in a world where we haven't made space for these kinds of people, like my kind of people. And sometimes you have, your neurodivergence is something that can, what do you call it, that benefits the status quo, so then you are kind of accepted or exploited because of that. But there are also other ways of being wired differently mentally, or like brain-wise, neurologically, that doesn't always give you the best positioning in certain areas. And so in that sense, you're seen more as a disadvantage, or as a problem, or as a burden. And it's hard not to internalize that for yourself and your identity, or your acceptance of your difference. Actually, I was telling my partner about this, like, every time I would have like a sensory overload, and I would find myself crashing. So for those of you who don't know, I feel like I say it here and there, but for those of you who maybe you've just clicked on this video and it's the first time you hear about it, being a highly sensitive person, it basically just means that your nervous system is very reactive and responsive and attuned to your surrounding, to everything. So that means like to people, to noises, to social gap, to information, to, it's the best way I can explain it is that my nervous system thinks everything is important. And so it's always collecting everything, you know, like what's happening there, the weather, how do I feel, what was that look on that person's face, like there's all these ways that I'm always collecting information. And then if I'm in a new environment with new people, and I'm also collecting even more information than I would on my everyday life, where I'm with people I have built a database on, so I don't have to start from scratch, then it's overworking, right? And then when that happens, and if I don't create safe, like, mental hygiene practices for myself, then I get to a place of sensory overload. And that can look like many things. It can look like an emotional breakdown. It can look like me needing to fully retreat because I need to recharge. Or it can also look like, in certain situations that I've learned slowly, hence like taking my job experiences project by project and see, how do we feel here? Is this sustainable? Is this aligned? Do I spend a lot of my free time over like recharging because of what I do all day, and therefore I have no other things to do, and therefore my quality of life diminishes? So finding things that are aligned and are less taxing for my nervous system, like working remote, making sure that I can have more autonomy with the environment I work in. So I've learned that slowly, and I've created new settings for myself to make that easier and easier for myself. But also what I'm learning now is to vocalize it better, and to not vocalize it from a place of apology, but more FYI, you know, like that. I feel it's very much like, I can't keep up with you guys, so I'm gonna be very slow, and I'm not always going to respond the way you think that a normal person should respond here and there, or whatever a normal is. And I'm just really, really sorry for the inconvenience of my existence. And that really was important for me to recognize, because I never want to put myself in those feelings or in that space. But I was grateful through this new role and this new development in my life to recognize that I still hold a space of shame around that, which makes no sense because I literally didn't decide to be born like this, and it's a genetic trait that passes down through generations. So like, you probably know someone who's HSP, and a lot of HSP sadly like find out that HSP is much later in life because the knowledge and understanding of it is only recently like growing. There's a lot to be found now, and I'm so grateful to be born in a time where I have so much access to information, where I can look at things and be like, and have communities, maybe not around me, but communities that reaffirm that what you're experiencing and feeling is a natural part of the human catalog. It's just not one that's highlighted a lot or made space for in our human experience. But then that's my job. I have to do that for myself. I have to advocate for myself. And maybe by showing up more unapologetically, the young HSPs who are coming after us won't have to be as apologetic about it. And some people, like, of course, like, obviously I'm also an introvert, but like those two things don't always go hand in hand. Even though the majority of HSPs are introverted, there's also, I think, around 30% that are not, that are extroverted and HSP, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know how that works. But it is possible. But it's not the same thing. Like, being introvert isn't the same as being an HSP or vice versa. And also there's a lot of, I've been like following the conversation around that. There's also a lot of people who are saying that a lot of people who are diagnosed with HSP or who relate to that might actually be, especially if you're a woman, you might actually have autism, but it's a lot of people misdiagnose that as HSP or even vice versa. But there's like clear differences, at least from the studies. Like, there's a clear difference between the two. They're not the same. Like, the thing that I'm learning about life, that we exist in so many unique ways. Like, nature is amazing. Like, the idea that you need to have so few boxes and be like, you fit in here and this is all of you. No, or maybe you fit a bit in that and a bit of that and a bit in that. But the more you meet yourself and get to know yourself, the easier it is for you to find your space in life and even find more comfort and confidence within yourself, which is like something I'm grateful to be more and more aware of now, because I'm going to be practicing being more proactive in how I speak about it, and not from an apologetic space. So being able to tell people and not make excuses. For example, when I go to gathering and be like, I have 2 hours tops. I'm gonna come, I'm gonna show up, we're gonna have fun, I'm gonna be like the life of the party. You're gonna think like I'm so outgoing, and then it's almost like a Cinderella effect. Come that 2-hour mark, it's like, I need to go. This is a lot. I'm done. I'm really, really done. I need to go. I need to retreat. I need to go somewhere. Some moments I've noticed that it's kind of like a capacity thing. If I have a lot of capacity, if I'm doing something where I can almost ignore my inner, what do you call it, overwhelm or sensory overwhelm, then I can push on longer. Like, I'm somebody who can maybe once a year go at a club and have the time of my life and dance until 5 o'clock. No problem. But that's like a once in a year thing where I'll have the capacity to do that. And then I'll go all out. I'll go to a festival. But my day-to-day life, I prefer to not be overstimulated by a lot of things, by information, by emotions, by people, by so many things. And I need to, even the dreams I have for myself, like my little house somewhere with my partner in a beautiful nature space, that's also related to the kind of person I am. Because when I'm in nature, I'm less overwhelmed. Like, it's like the frequency are aligned, so they're not disturbing my inner world. So I'm not overwhelmed. Everything is aesthetically aligned and pleasing. The colors, there's not a lot of things. Like, you will catch me here and there. Like, I'm always like, of course, being aware of everything going around me. And before, I also felt like that was normal. Like, isn't that real life? Isn't that everybody feels a lot? They're just better at handling it than me. Or everybody's always aware of everything, like when they step into the room, like why is that person talking like that, what's the music, like what's the vibe here, did something happen before I walked into the room, is that person and that person still okay with each other? Like there's so many inner questions that I'm constantly like taking note of, and sometimes this information is not even information I might need or use, and sometimes this information becomes very valuable in certain situations, but I'm always collecting and I'm always processing. So if I have like a very impressionable day or experience or moment in my life, but there's no time to decompress and recharge and process everything, then my brain goes into shutdown mode. And for me, that's been my biggest awakening, sadly, to taking this trait more seriously. When I knew that, oh my God, when I don't respect my nature, it literally like goes into self-destruct. It's like, because everything is amplified, all emotions are amplified, right? So if I'm happy and joyous and at peace or at all, like everything is like, oh, beautiful, which is like creating art and doing books, like talking to people in my holistic section. This is an advantage that I am like this, right? But on the negative side, when things are also bad, if I don't find grounding, like everything is really bad, you know? And if I don't have time to rebalance myself, then that's when my brain goes to like life-ending desires, because I can't cope, because it's too much, because I'm done. But over the years, like educating myself on it, like having more friends that are like that, like I've even had people that I've known in workspaces where they'll do certain things and I'm like, you might want to research HSP because you have like I would even notice them before they said anything, because we do similar things that make sense to each other that maybe for everyday people they might not notice. Like I remember this one friend I have who's very dear to me, and we were working in Lisbon together, and just the way he would like organize his desk, the way how he would sit with his legs, and the way that he, not only his awareness of everybody, but he's also care and for everybody else as well. But like there were certain things he did that I felt like I see him, and so I told him about it, and him and another colleague, apparently, because like it's like 30% of the population, we worked in this big space. Of course you were going to meet a few HSPs, like a hell for HSPs, working in an open space, big area with lots of people, talking to people on the phone the whole day. The phone is ringing in your ear. But I've learned so much. I've put myself in situations that are just not it, that I would never do now, because I know, because I'm learning. I'm learning step by step, like, let's never do that. That's too much. Don't go to open space offices. Don't work at jobs where you are in contact with people all day and expected to be in contact with people all day. Like there's all these things I've learned the hard way, but I'm so grateful for. But meeting people and also even sharing that with them, and then seeing how their life changes because they are more aware. They have a word for it. I share the resources I have, like podcasts, websites, even books. And then to see people, I don't know, like get to know themselves differently and love themselves differently and care for themselves differently. But more importantly, to recognize there's nothing wrong with you. You are something. You have a trait that has a name, that has a community, that has certain things that it requires of you. And also recognizing that my sensitivity and softness is not take away from my resilience and ability to adapt, because I know that I'm also all of those things. I wouldn't have traveled and lived in different countries by myself and challenged myself in so many ways, but just doing it also from an HSP's perspective. So the two things can coexist. Like I can still challenge and expand and grow and put myself in new situations. I just have to figure out my own way of doing that. And with this new job and this new role and this new opportunities it opens up for me, like even the way I can organize my life now that I'm not like glued to a specific location or job, all of these things are giving me more flexibility and more space to be me and to take care of myself and to show up for myself. There's so much flexibility that it allows me to be the kind of person that I need to have space for, to thrive, right? So that's also a mini update that I'm really grateful that I'm getting closer and closer to that with every experience, with every relationship, with every opportunity. And I'm learning more and more to respect that limitation and embrace the advantages that being who I am. Like, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses and our challenges, and recognizing who you are and respecting who you are, and then putting yourself in the best positions for all of that so you can actually thrive is a beautiful thing to witness. And I'm just excited to see like where I'll be in a few years, but wherever it is, I know I'm getting more and more comfortable, and that feels so beautiful, and that feels like the best way I can honor who I am, like holistically, right? So that has been that. What else? Like, I forgot to tell you, I turned 34 last May. I didn't celebrate like proper, so one of my goals this month and the next month, like June, July, is to like treat myself to something, maybe a little travel, you know. So I had a very uneventful birthday, but like when I would turn 33, like that one I was prepared for years in advance. Like I told you guys, like I've always been excited about turning 33. I don't have a lot of reference for 34, but then I went to angel numbers because I go there sometimes to look up what 34 means, and I'm like, oh, I can vibe with that. That's like, yeah, we can definitely do that. I feel like 34 is going to be interesting. I think I know more like 35, how that could feel, but 34 is like an in-betweener. But 34, I think it's like an open-ended. It's like the fruition of the next big step, and I'm just so grateful that I gifted myself. The last gift of 33 was to secure this new project and opportunity of a job, and what that means for the rest of my goals. And now 34 is more like putting those things into motion, right? And I'm excited about that. Like, I'm so excited about that. You don't even know that. So, and I look forward to share that with you and take you on the journey. We're doing the damn thing, one thing at a time. Us little sensitive, slow beings, we can still do shit. So I'm excited about that, and I look forward for when my schedule becomes more, what do you call it? Like, I get more used to it, because then I can pick up the other things that I love to do. So also even content, I'm not gonna be obviously as frequent as I was kind of having a little momentum, like my 2 videos a month. That was a good vibe. I'm trying to be graceful with myself and know that this is a transitional space, and when I'm in my transitional space, because of also how I am, like I need to cut off a few things so that I have less overwhelm, and I'm more focused on adapting to something new until that feels familiar enough that I can add other elements of my joys and what brings meaning to my life, you know? But I look forward to sharing all of that with you guys. I think that's mainly it. Like, I'm in a good space. My mental space feels very confident and assured, even though we've met a lot of overwhelm and anxiety over the last week. But I always get motivated by my ability to bounce back, and not just bounce back for bounce back's sake, but it's like I've built a really good foundation now, and it gets easier and easier. And this is what I always want to inspire you guys to do, that you take the path and you continue to show up just day by day. And before you know it, when you look back, you notice that you are more robust, you are much stronger, you are more capable of adapting and going through things. And even the heavy, strong emotions, they don't take you down as they used to. You've found a way to find your equilibrium and sustain it over longer periods than you used to before. I grew up in a body that was constantly like a roller coaster of strong, heavy emotions, and it gave me a lot of anxiety, and I struggled with a lot of depression and all of those things, because I didn't know how to better take care of my nervous system, because I didn't know that what I was, or who I was and what I needed. And I'm so grateful that I get to be the kind of adult that creates those spaces for myself. And also, because of what I've had to do, I also very much have compassion and understanding for people who struggle in any way that they are, in the way that their neurodivergence shows up, because I know it's hard out here. And this is also why I love also even my sessions, like holding sessions and being able to hold that space for other people and helping them have the guide I didn't have growing up. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, and if you ever want some guidance on that, I don't have as much time as I had before, so I'm not as flexible as I was before in the last few months. But if you do really feel a connection with me or vibe with me and you would like some guidance on your journey from a holistic decolonial perspective, I always encourage you to check out my webpage and read a bit more about my holistic sessions and pick what kind of fits with what you might need. It would be my honor. And also, okay, let's go get some treats. I was like, I need to make this video first. Priorities, right? And then I'm gonna treat myself to like a cute drink and a cute snack, and I'm gonna have good food today, and I'm going to watch something good, like a good movie. Guys, recommend me anything that you guys might be watching or enjoying. I watched The Ultimative Queer Edition, love that shit. Quality entertainment. I also watched, this is like just another segment, sorry guys. You know, I love Korean series here and I find them so relaxing. Also, I like Japanese reality shows, also very relaxing. There's a theme here. But I also like my messier kind of, mostly American and South African apparently. Like there's this rich young African thing that I watch here and there. It's a mess. So I like to, like, you know, diversify my cell burning time. I watched a reality series, Japanese, called Love Village. So beautiful. I recommend, if you like Terrace House and that kind of vibe, you will definitely love this as well. I also, what else do I want to recommend? Queen Maker, Korean series, feminist vibes, recommend as well. Like also holistic healing, here for it. And women working together, here for it. And also I'm trying to get into Love is Blind, Brazilian edition. It's a great way for me to practice and sustain my Portuguese as it dwindles, which is another mission I have to be on, like to sustain my Portuguese and also build up my French, which is getting better now with my partner. But I don't want to lose my Portuguese either, because I want to sustain a 5 language ratio, you know. I want to be good at them, and so far I'm like good at 3, like the Danish, Luganda, and English, or good enough at least. I don't know, you be the judge of that. But then my French and Portuguese, I also want to sustain them, and then one day I want to learn Swahili. But yeah, so I was watching Love is Blind, or I tried to get into Love is Blind because of the practicing my Portuguese, but I really don't get into it when it's so like the cast is so not that diverse. The last one was very diverse. The new one seems very white. I'm not sure that's the vibe, but we'll see. My favorite content is about love or relationships, and if it's like more reality shows, I'm also really into reality shows that are very calm and human and not overproduced. So if you know any other ones that you want to recommend to me, please do. Also for my highly sensitive people, maybe I'll put this a bit in the earlier part. I would definitely recommend the Highly Sensitive podcast. Love that. She also has a website where you can have access to therapists who work with HSPs or who are HSPs. Sometimes I forget what, or maybe both. And also I would definitely recommend that you check out the Sensitive Refuge. It's also an online platform, but it's also a community. Just in case you don't have highly sensitive people around you, like for me, getting to know other HSP people and seeing the similarities, it also makes me feel less judgmental towards myself, because I'm like, oh, this is just how it is. Like you can't change that. Sometimes it's easier for me to accept things when I can put them in that kind of context. I don't know about you. So I would recommend that. I also recommend a podcast called Self Work. I always recommend it to the people I hold sessions for. It's such great self-therapy, and she's so wonderful and vulnerable and honest, and just I recommend that. So those are the main things. If I forget something, I probably will put it here as well. Those are the things I'm leaving you with. Anyway, Guys, that's all I wanted to share with you. I hope you're doing well. I hope this new season of summer is going to be kind to you wherever you might be, and that you have beautiful plans for the holiday, even if it's not to travel, but travel within, get to know yourself, have space for yourself, create a beautiful existence for yourself, one step at a time, one learning at a time, one readjustment at a time. It's like a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're gonna slow and steady our way to wherever we want to go, and I'm just really happy to share that with you guys. So thank you so much for taking time to watch this video and for making it this far. Have a beautiful weekend. If this comes out in the weekend, I'm hoping it does. As always, I hope you're blooming wherever you're planted, and I send you lots of love, lots of light and courage to guide you on your path. Bye. Bye.
Yes, I see the things that they wishing on me. Oh, I got some brothers that outlive me. They gon' tell the story, it was different with me. God's plan, God's plan.